पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। चैतन्यं सर्वगं सर्वं सर्वभूतगुहाशयम् यत्सर्वविषयातीतं तस्मै सर्वविदे नमः। In UpadeshSahasri, we are in the 17th chapter called Samyak Mati Prakaranam. The chapter dealing with Samyak Mati or right knowledge. Just reviewing the verses that we have done, starting with the first verse. Parapaksha nirakarana mukhenoktam moksha sadhanam jnanam. Jnanam is moksha sadhanam. Self-knowledge, the means of moksha, because ignorance is the cause of bondage. Saprakriyapi vyaktikartum. Earlier chapter, the views of the opponents were demolished or refuted, and now swapaksha, presenting one's own paksha. Prakaranantaram agamana. So this 17th chapter is now devoted to presenting the position of the Vedantin. Devata bhaktehe vidya praptyam angaratvam antarangatvam. Devata bhakti, worship of Devata, Lord, also is an important means of knowledge. Angaratvam is antaranga sadhanam, inner sadhanam. Devotan, meaning that the knowledge also should be pursued with devotion in the heart. Later, the Tikakara will say, Yasya deve parabhakti, the one who has the supreme devotion for the Lord, whom he wants to know. Yatha deve tatha guru, and also in the Guru. So this bhakti is a very important and inevitable requirement of self-growth for gaining the knowledge. Namaskara vyajena, in the pretext of namaskara or saluting the devata. Prakana pratipadyartham sankshipyaha. The first verse, which apparently is of the nature of salutation to the devata, also expresses in brief this very theme of the entire chapter. First verse is Atma Jneha Parohyatma Yasmat Annan Navidyate Sarvajnah Sarvadrik Shuddha Tasmai Jneyatmane Namaha. Namaha Namaskar. Tasmai Jneyatmane Namaha. Tasmai Atmane Namaha. To that Atma, my Namaskar. Gneyatmana Atma, there is Gneya, that has to be known. To that Atma, my namaskar. The verse says Atma Gneya, Atma must be known, Atma Vara Drashtavya. Hey Maitreyi, Atma must be known as an immediate reality of myself. Swarupa Avadharya. Everybody knows the self anyway. Nobody doesn't know the Atma or the self. Everybody knows who I am. But Swarupa, knowing the Atma self as the self is, as I am, Avadharya, ascertaining the true nature of myself. Kim Ghatadivat Vishatvena. Is Atma to be known as an object of knowledge like Ghatapata? No. Paroshyatma. Atma is para, is transcendental. Sarvajnaya, sarvajnayatva dharmarahita. Atma is not an objective entity. Myself, I am not an objective entity, I transcend everything. I should know myself as a transcendental entity that at once sustains everything and then transcends everything, that pervades everything and transcends everything. Yasmad Atma Sarvaparaha Jnetva Dharmarahitaha, because Atma is supreme, superior to all that is knowable, because it is free from or devoid of the attribute of knowability. Tatkutaha. What's the reason why Atma is Paraha, the supreme, the most exalted, and not an object of knowledge? Yasmat Anyanna Vidyate. Yasmat, from which Atmanaha Surupat Anyata. In reality, nothing else exists, nothing exists other than Atma. No entity exists other than Atma, nor attribute also exists other than Atma, Dharmava. And therefore, Atma is not Gneya, cannot be the object of knowledge. It cannot be Pratyaksha, it cannot be the object of perception. The Tikakara says inference, comparison, Arthapatti, presumption, Anupalabdhi, even Shabda, meaning that none of these conventional means of knowledge available to us, because all these means of knowledge are knowing what is objective, what is other than myself. Atma means my own self, and therefore cannot naturally become the object, can objectify any means of knowledge. Therefore, Vishayabhuta Dehendriya Antahkarana Pratyakhyānena. So whatever is knowable, not only what is outside my body is knowable, but even they have the body, indriya, sense organs, mind, intellect, which I habitually call as I, recognize that they are also Gneya and knowable. Tat Sakshitaya Avishatvena Swam Prakashatma Gneya. I am the very Sakshi, the witness of all of this. Self-effulgent. That is who I am. In that manner, Atma, the self, I have to know myself as a witness of the body, mind, sense. Why is it so? Because I take them to be Atma. Because of the habitual identification. Recognizing that what I call as I, they are not I. I am the Sakshi, the witness of all this, body, etc. So this is the nature of Atma as a self, Tvam Padartha in the Vedantic terminology. Atma also is Ishvara. Sarvajna, Saradruk Shuddha. Samanya, the one who knows everything in general is called Sarvajna, omniscient. Sarvadruk, one who sees everything in particular, is called Sarvadruk, the knower of all. This is the Tatastha Lakshanam, Upalakshanam, not Swarupa Lakshanam. This is the incidental characteristic of Atma, that Atma is all-knowing. It knows everything in general and particular. That is not the Swarupa Atma. This indicatory nature, indicatory like characteristics of Atma. Very Atma is known as the very nature of knowledge, Shuddha. Anurta, Jada, Parichanna, Dukkhadi, Prapancha, Samsargrahita. Shuddha, ever pure, devoid of any contact or association, anything that is impure. Anatma is impure, Jagat is impure. Why is it? Because Jadam, inert, Anutam, Mithya, Parichinnam, limited, Dukkhatmakam, when it is approached for as a means of happiness, creates dukkha. Atma is ever free from any association with this Anatma, Jagat, which is impure. Therefore, Shuddha, the self is ever pure. Satya Jnana Ananta Rupa Ananta Ananda Rupa. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Anandam. Tasmai Jnatmane Namaha. So, first line of the verse unfolded the nature of Tvampada. The part of second line unfolded Tatpada. And now the identity of Tam and Tvat, Tasmai Jnayatmane Namaha. Tasmai Jnayatmane Namaha. Jnayaschasu Atma Chik Jnayatma. Atma, that is known as described, is a very witness, self-effulgent. Jnaya, that one that has to be known. Tasmai Namaha, to that Atma, my Namaskar. Here the Tikakara says that Namaskara means that completely dissolving the sense of individuality which creates a distance. So Namaskara ultimately culminates into identity. There is a true Namaskara or salutation where I even let go my sense of even Namaskara. The one who is actually saluter also is given up. Namaskarta also is given up. Tad bhedushti vilaheva. Therefore, the cessation of the bhedushti, the notion of the duality between myself and Ishvara and anything else, that bhedushti, the notion of duality is completely let go in the wake of the knowledge of oneness. This is what is meant by Namaha. So Guru Paramparam Pranamati. The first verse expressed Devata Bhakti. Second verse expresses Guru Bhakti. Yasya Deve Para Bhakti Yasa Deve Tatha Guru. Padavakya Pramanajnehi Deepabhutehi Prakashitam Brahma Vedarhasyamyehi Tan Nityam Pranatosmyaham. ये मे गुरुभिः पूर्वं पदवाक्य प्रमाणतः व्याख्याता सर्ववेदान्तः तान् नित्यं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्. That's how it is said in Taittiriya Upanishad. Something similar. पदवाक्य प्रमाणज्ञैः yehi. Those great teachers who were the knowers of pada, vakya, pramanam, Pada also means Vyakaranam, Vakyam also means Mimamsa, Pramana means Nyaya. So knowers of all of these Shastras. And therefore extremely competent to unfold the meaning of these statements of the scriptures. Pada Vakya Pramanajnahi, those who are well versed in Pada Vakya Pramana, Pada word, Vakya sentence, Pramana which is a means of knowledge. Divbhutai Prakashidam Brahma Veda Rahasyam, so those who illuminate Brahman, which is the very essence of Veda. So by the teachers, Prakashitam, who revealed Brahman, which is the very essence of Veda, Tan Nityam Pranatosmiham, to those gurus I always remain saluted. Deepabhutai ayatnena sarvartha prakashakahi yahi iti sambandha. So Deepa is a lamp, is that which illumines. Our teachers were like the lamp, who illumine by very nature, just as lamp does not have to make any effort to illumine. So the teachers did not need any effort to illumine. Like lamp, it just happened spontaneously. Samanyena Acharya Paramparam Namaskritya Visheshana Swaguru Pranama Purvakam. Second verse offers salutation to all the teachers, the parampara, the lineage, the succession of all the teachers and disciples. So, having saluted all the teachers in general, now in particular, the author salutes his own teacher. Uddesham Pratijanite. Again, in the pretext of offering salutation to his own teacher, the author also reveals here what is subject matter. Yadvak suryamshu sampada pranashtadhvanta kalmasha pranamyatan gurun vakshe brahma vidya vinischayam. Yadvak suryamshu, Vak Surya, one whose Vak or words are like sun, Amshu of which rays, Sampata. When the rays of the sun fall anywhere, they dispel the darkness. So the rays of the sun, of whose words dispel the darkness of ignorance, meaning whose words reveal the knowledge and dispel the ignorance in the heart of the student. Pranamyatan Gurun Vakshe. So the particular Guru who dispelled the darkness of ignorance in my heart, to those Gurus, the plural is in the sense of reverence. Vakshe I will now state, Brahma Vidya Vinischayam. Vinischayam, the ascertained conviction of Brahma Vidya. Now I am going to say that because of by which the conviction about the Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of Brahman, will arise in the students. That I will say, in that manner I will say. Brahma Vidya Vinischaya Visma Nyaya Visheshat Bhavati. The reasoning by which the conviction, the ascertainment of the knowledge of Brahman takes place in the student, that method of reasoning I will present, which will enable the student to recognize self as Brahman. Pranamyatan Gurun. So, saluting the Gurus, also the teacher says, what is the subject matter of this chapter? I am going to present the reasoning or the methodology of reasoning which will enable the students to see the Atma, the Self, to dispel the darkness of ignorance in the heart of the student. Because ignorance is in the form of wrong notions. Ignorance is not merely darkness, but then it is also vikshepa in the form of the wrong notions. And whatever notion we have is a conclusion that we have about ourselves. Each one of us is born with the notion or conclusion about who I am, what the world is, what the Ishvara is. So Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, about all these three. We are born with conclusions. It is a nature of our intellect to have opinion about myself, opinion about the world, opinion about Ishvara. And these opinions in fact determine my life. These opinions, notions, which I think are convictions, they think are real. They determine my Shraddha. What is important to me? What is the goal of my life? What is the means of attaining that goal? All of this is determined by the convictions that I have about myself, about Jagat, about Ishvara. These convictions, these notions, they determine everything about my life. The whole belief system, ascertain what the goal is, what the means is, what the values are, everything is determined by this. And supposedly every conclusion is born as a result of some reasoning process. We have not examined the reasoning by which I have this conclusion, but whatever conclusion I have about myself, about you, about anybody else, has some reasoning. And therefore the teacher will provide a reasoning here by which the student can see the fallacy of his reasoning. Therefore, fallacy of his conclusions, and that's how the conclusions are dropped. That's how ignorance is shed. And that's how the nischaya. I have my nischaya right now, I have my ascertainment, I have my conviction as to who I am. But that conviction will turn into, what's the conviction? I am Brahman. I have conviction about what Jagat is, that's what Jagat also is Brahman. I have conviction of Ishvara is, that also turns into Brahman. So all those convictions should transform themselves into this conviction that Jiva is Brahman, Jagat is Brahman, Ishvara is Brahman. What is Brahman? What I am is Brahman. So therefore, this reasoning process is extremely important for Vedanta. It's not the reasoning to prove something. It is reasoning to dispel ignorance. We must know what is the role of reasoning here, tarka. Because ignorance manifests in our life in the form of the false notions or conclusions. And every notion or conclusion is born of some reasoning. Whatever be the reasoning, even if an illiterate person, some reasoning is there. And that's why a person is convinced about what he or she thinks. And therefore right reasoning has to be provided to dispel the ignorance of the nature of wrong notions. With this reasoning, which is conducive to remove ignorance of the nature of the wrong notions or conclusions of viparita jnanam, it is called, false knowledge, has an extremely important role to play in Vedanta. Kimartham Brahma Vidya Nishya Vakshate. What's the reason why you are not going to state the Vinishya, the conviction, the ascertained knowledge about Brahma? What's the reason? What purpose will it serve? Atma labhat paro nanyo labhah kasyana vidyate, the fourth verse says. Yadartha vedavadasya smartasya yah kriyaha. Everything is meant for Atma labha. Vedavadasya, all the Vedavadaha, meaning Veda Vachanani, all these statements of the Vedas, Smartaha, Smartavadasya, and also the statement of Smrutis. So Shruti and Smruti, all the religious or spiritual scriptures that we have, all of them are devoted to Yadartha. For what purpose? For revealing the true nature of or Atma Labha. What is the Labha? The reward or gain by knowing the self. By gaining the self, Atma Labhat Paro Labha. There is no labha or gain greater than the gain of Atma. There is no achievement greater than the achievement of Atma. There is no goal greater than the goal that is Atma. There is no knowledge greater than knowledge of Atma. Atma labhat paro labha na kasyana vidyate. Since there is no labha, the gain greater than the gain of the self, on what basis do you say that? Yadarthaha vedavadascha. All the Vedas are devoted to enabling us to gain Atma. The Smritis also have their only one purpose, and that is to help us gain Atma. Ya kriyaha, not only that. Not the knowledge section of the Vedas and Smritis, but the karma section also. Chitta Shuddhi Paramparaya. The karmas, the rituals, etc., which are also revealed by both Shruti and the Smriti, they also have only one purpose. Atma labha, attainment of Atma. How can karma become a means of attaining the Atma? Chitta Shuddhi Paramparaya. Karma, the action performed selflessly. It is not karma that does anything, it is the spirit of selflessness. Offering, that is what purifies the heart. Thus karma gives us an opportunity to entertain the attitude of giving. Usually I don't want to do that, I want to grab. But that is called yoga, where this attitude of grabbing is deliberately transformed to the attitude of giving. A karma yogi looks upon every action as an opportunity to grow. So chitta shuddhi paramparaya. Thus any karma, any action performed in this spirit, with this attitude, becomes a means of self-purification. And that way makes the mind a fit instrument for the knowledge. Therefore, the entire scripture is only one purpose, and that is Atma Labha, attainment of Atma is the only purpose of all the scriptures. Putrādi labha apekshaya Atma labhasya paramatvam. Putrādi labha apekshaya. in comparison to the labha or attainment of putra, etc., which are supposed to be very dear. Tadetat preyah putrat preyah vittat preyah anyasmat sarvasmat. In the world, putra, the son, the progeny, vitta, the wealth, which includes name, fame, etc. Anyasmat sarvasmat, whatever else that is dear. Atma is dearer than all these entities that are thought to be dear. Sarasmat antarataram, because it is innermost as compared to all of these that are dear. Therefore, it is already stated in Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 148. Therefore, here says, so there is the fifth, Atmanatho bihiyo labha sukhayeshto viparyah. Atma labha paraproktaha nityatvad brahmavedibihi. There is two kind of labha, two kind of attainment. Attainment for the sake of myself or attainment of myself. Attainment of the happiness, my happiness. Attainment of something that I consider dear, which may be pleasure, name, fame, whatever it is I consider dear, attainment of that is for my sake. Atmastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Sarvam, all of that becomes priyam because for the sake of Atma. So Atmartha labha. But labha or gain for Atma. Other is labha of Atma, and this is the difference. Atma thopiyo labha sukhaya ishto viparyaya. The labha or gain or attainment that is for Atma, for myself. What is that? Putradi labhenaiva Atma sukha siddhe. He says, why do you need to gain Atma? In our day-to-day life, we are happy gaining putra, vitta, mitra, kalatra, etc. So putra, vitra, kalatra. By attaining this, I become happy. So why do I need to attain Atma? So putra, vitta, putra, mitra, kalatra, etc. They are for making me happy. Putra, vitta, mitra, kalatra. Kalatra means wife. So these are entities that are dear to me, and therefore I wish to attain them so that I become happy. So they are dear to me for my sake, and therefore I attain them for my sake, for my happiness. Atmartha labha. If that labha is enough in my life, then why should I worry about Atma labha, attaining self? So the teacher here draws our attention to the difference between the labha attainment of those which make me happy and labha attainment of myself. There is attainment of those things that make me happy, like putra, mitra, kalatra, etc. Wealth, name, fame, and anything else that we think makes me happy. So happiness gained through them cannot give you, says, sukhaya ishto viparyaya. That putra, mitra, vitta, kalatra, all of that can be source of happiness as well as unhappiness. Kadachit kasyachit putradeva dukkha hetu to darshanad. Kadachit, sometime, kasyachit, for somebody, we find that putra which is so dear also becomes a source of unhappiness. So putra is the first one, then anything else That vitta and everything follows. Meaning that what was thought to be dearest does not always become the means of happiness, it doesn't always give me happiness, is also known to be a means of unhappiness. Sukhaishta viparyaya sometimes can become the means of happiness and sometimes means of unhappiness. What about Atma Labha? Is Atmartha Labha. The Labha, the gaining of those which are helpful to me, favorable to me, means of happiness to me. That Labha can be also Gair Labha, Unlabha, therefore it can be also cause of pain. So with reference to Labha or attainment of those things, what is the difference between Atma Labha and those Labha? Atmalabha parah prokta nityatvat brahmavedivihi. By notes of Brahma, both Brahma means Vedas, scriptures, as well as Brahma. Atmalabha paroprokta parah prokta. Atmalabha is said to be the supreme, most exalted. Why? Nityatvat. The labha, the happiness that comes from something other than Atma is nitya, unpredictable, temporary, fleeting, and can also cause this opposite, namely unhappiness. Whereas Atma labha nityatvat, Atma labha gives me happiness that is nitya or eternal. Since Atma is eternal, therefore the happiness of Atma also is eternal. Therefore, most reliable. That is what one is always searching for. Something that is reliable. Something that is trustworthy. Something that does not disappoint me ever under any kind of circumstances. That is infallible. That is nityatvat. Atma labha is infallible. At all the times, at all the places, and all conditions, it is happiness. Because that happiness is unconditional. Therefore, it does not depend upon any condition. Therefore, it doesn't fail me, doesn't disappoint me. Infallible. So as Puja Swami used to say, every human being is in search of the infallible, and this is it. Atmalabha. Viparya prasanga tatra nasti. It can never be that Atma becomes means of unhappiness, never, because nityatvat. The happiness is nitya. Meaning happiness by nature. Unconditionally it is happy, therefore. Anything that gives me conditional happiness, when that condition is absence, can also become source of non-happiness or unhappiness also. Atma gives me happiness for no reason. Therefore, it is eternal. Taditat preha putrat, preha vittat, preha anyasmat, savasmat, yat antarataram yadayam atma. Atma is innermost compared to all those which are thought to be means of happiness. Sayo anyamatma priyam brahmanam bruyat. Now this is an interesting statement. Atma anyam priyam brahmanam. Somebody says, no, this is dear to me, my son is dear to me. Somebody who is saying that my son is dearer to me than myself, what do you mean? To that fellow, this one says, to that. Priyam rotshati. What you consider dear will ultimately perish, understand. Whatever it is will perish. And then will make you cry. If someone says that to him, that hey so and so, you who looks upon this entity as dear, that entity will perish someday and then become cause of your crying, weeping, unhappiness, sadness, grief. Ishvara, then what he says will turn out to be true, because it is true. Anything other than Atma is perishable, therefore that object of happiness, or that is a dear, is perishable, fallible, and therefore will disappoint you, make you sad, cause you grief. Atmana priyam upasita, therefore Atmanam priyam upasita. We should always meditate upon Atma, recognize Atma, see Atma, worship Atma as the only one that is dear, only one that deserves, because it's only one that is happiness, object of love. We always love the self. That I always do, but unfortunately self, that is body, mind, that's not that self. Self, this is Atma. So Atma upaste nahasya priyam pramayukam bhavati. One who loves Atma, upasate means one who therefore pursues the knowledge of Atma, because Atma has to be gained. That next verse will say, gaining Atma is knowing Atma. It is already gained. Therefore, one should recognize Atma as the dearest. So, one who recognizes Atma as dearest will never be disappointed. Nasya priyam pramayukam bhavati, the Atma will never be perishable. Atma sukhalabhasya nityatmuktam sadhayati. Atma Sukha Labha, attainment of the happiness of Atma is eternal, Nitya, Sadhayati. 6th verse, Swayam Labdha Svavavatva Labhastasya Nasanyataha Anyapekshastu yo labha sonya dushtya samudbhavaha. So what is the difference between Atma, the self, and other things? Swayam Labdha Svavavatva. Atma is labdha svabhava. Atma is the nature of the one that is already attained. Therefore, even though they say Atma labha, attainment of Atma, there is no labha, no attainment in primary sense, because already attained. Then where is the question of attaining Atma? They already attained. Attainment is to recognize that it is attained, that's all. Something is there but not known to us. A great treasure is buried underneath and I don't know. And therefore, it's not that to attain that treasure is already mine, but I have to recognize that it is mine, attainment of what is already attained. So Atma, even though it is already and always attained because it is myself, for some reason I entertain this notion that Atma is unattained. The limitless is unattained. Atma is limitless and unattained. Even though limitlessness, which is nature of the self, is already attained because it is myself. For some reason, unfortunate reason, I entertain the notion that I am a limited being. And Vedanta explains why that notion arises. It is because of taking the limited as Atma. The body is limited, sense organs are limited, mind is limited, intellect is limited, it's all limited. Upadhi is limited, costume is limited. The costume is a beggar costume, and taking that costume as myself, I look upon myself beggar, even though I am a multimillionaire. Even though I am limitless, identifying with this limited costume, I unfortunately entertain notion that I am limited, therefore limitless becomes something to be attained. Right now, limitless falls in the category of to be attained in my list, shopping list. Not because it is of the nature of to be attained, it is because of my notion that I am limited. It is true that I am constantly striving to attain Atma or limitless. That is my life. Life of human being is a constant pursuit of the limitless, of the freedom. Whatever at a given moment I may understand as freedom, that's what I am seeking to attain. People are attaining, different people who are attaining different things, seeking different things. Because people have different notions about what that limitless is. And same person also seems to be seeking different, his notions also changes to what the limitless is. And therefore, different people appear to be seeking different things. The same person also appears to be seeking different things at different times. But that is because of the changing notions of what he is seeking. But through all the seeking, there is only one thing that a human being is seeking, and that is the Nityam, limitless, eternal. Swayam labdha svabhavatvat. That limitless that one is seeking, call it limitless, eternal, whatever words we use. Limitless means devoid of the limitation of time, place, conditions. Swayam labdha svabhavatvat, that limitless is already attained because it is the nature of myself. Atmalava tasya na cha anyatah, tasya atmalava nanyatah. Therefore, atmalava, attainment of Atma. For attaining the Atma, you do not need means other than Atma. For attainment of $1 billion, I may need a means other than dollars, and other than myself. For becoming more famous, becoming more wealthy, becoming more powerful, I may need means other than myself. For attaining these worldly things, I need entities, means other than myself. But for attaining Atma or the limitless, I do not need anything other than myself. Atmano lava anya nimittako na bhavati. Nacha anyatah means anya nimittaka. The attainment of Atma does not depend, does not need any means other than Atma. Attaining Atma is not through an Atma, something other than Atma. Kuta? Why? Swayam labdha svabhavatvat, because Atma by nature is labdha svabhava. The limitless, that is called Atma, there is I, naturally, that's why the word Atma. But the limitless is by nature, myself, and them already attained. Swayam labdha svabhavatvat sadhana sadhyatva abhavat. Atma, myself, I am already limitless, therefore I do not need any other than myself for attaining limitless. Anything other than myself is always limited. So when I think that what I am seeking limitless is different from myself, I am going to adopt a means other than myself, that means is limited. So what is attained also is limited. But attainment of limitless does not require any means other than myself. Anya nimittako na bhavati. labdha svabhavat, because limitlessness being my nature, therefore does not need a means other than myself, because every means is limited. By limited means you could not attain limitless. So, other labha, atmartha labha. Labha for atma is putraya labhasya sadhana adhinatvena. Only thing that comes free is myself, understand? In a life, only thing that comes free is myself. For everything else, I have to pay the price. It may be time, talent, toil, whatever it is. Putraja labhasya sadhaninatvena anityatvam. The putra, progeny, etc., which I look upon as means of happiness, their attainment is dependent upon some other means other than myself. Jayamya tasa prajaya. He says, may I have a wife, therefore I would have a son or I would have progeny. So progeny depends upon means other than myself. And so also wealth and everything wealth. Anyapeksha to yo labha. Any labha or any attainment that is dependent upon something other than myself, which includes putra, vitta, etc., all those entities, the worldly entities, in this world and the other world. All of them really need a means. Putrena ayam lokah jayah, karmana pitrulokah, vidya devlokah. You have progeny for attaining this world, you require karma, rituals for the pitruloka, attain meditation, devata, devatas for Svargaloka. So therefore, Anyapeksha. There are Anatmaloka, therefore attaining them requires a means other than myself. I require putra, otherwise I can't attain this world. I need to perform karma, then only Pitruloka. Perform upasana, then only Svargaloka. Anyapekshastu yo labha. Anya drashti samudbhava. Anya drashti samudbhava. Anya drashte samudbhava yasya, which is born of anya drashti. Anya drashti sakashat, born of or born from anya drashti. Anya drashti. Kayam anya drashti. What is anya drashti? So that labha that is born of anya drashti is anya apeksha, dependent upon anya or other one, and therefore it is perishable. What is anya drashti? That the expression used in the 6th verse, the Tikakara asked this question, Kayam anya drashti. What is anya drashti that you are talking about? Kava tadbhosya anyaputra labhasya nitya kava, and the putra labha etc. is because, so putra the labha. Putra stands for everything that is desirable. So labha, attainment of anything desirable in this world or other world is because of anya drashti. It's all born of anya drashti. So what is anya drashti? And if that labha is born of anya drashti, what's the problem with that? First of all, you say that other labha is born of anya drashti. What is anya drashti? And secondly, just because the labha, the attainment is born of anya drashti, what's wrong with that? So the 7th verse says, Anya drashtistu vidyasya tannasho moksha uchyate. Anya drashti avidyasyat. Anya iti drashti is anya drashti. Brahmatam paradad yo atmanyatra brahma veda. This person is rejected by Brahmana who looks upon Brahmana as different from the self. Anya drushti means a drushti or a perception or conclusion that this is anya. So labha that I want to gain also is looked upon as anya. The happiness that I am seeking also is thought to be different from myself. Therefore it becomes, it requires to be attained, I am seeking to attain happiness because of my conclusion that happiness is different from anya drushti. Happiness is different from me. The means of attaining happiness, na karmana na praja dhanena karma praja dhanam, which are supposed to be means of attaining those things, are also anya, other than myself. And what is other than myself is limited. Therefore, what is born of limited means is limited. And what is other than myself also is limited. Therefore, anya drushti means looking upon something as different from myself, and therefore it is automatically limited. And therefore, what is attained, which is different, is limited. The means also is looked upon as different from myself, that is also limited. So what is attained by limited means is limited. Anyasmin anatmani drushti pratiti yasyaha sa anya drushti. Look upon something as anatma, that is basically ignorance. All there is atma. Looking upon something as anatma, different from myself, is ignorance. So this is the first expression of ignorance, which causes anya drushti, bheda drushti, anyonya abhavaha, what is you is not I, what is I is not you. Yushma asmat pratyaya gocharayo, yushma pratyaya, asmat pratyaya. So avidya is defined as sa avidya bhavati. Avidya, there are lots of debates going on about avidya and what is, avarana, vikshepa, tula vidya, mula vidya, this vidya, that vidya. But avidya is simply described as adhyasa, superimposition. Looking upon something as an atma, so sa avidya bhavati, anya drushti sa avidya bhavati. Anyasmin anatmani drushti pratiti. Looking at something as anatma other than myself is anya drushti, that is ignorance. It is born of ignorance, but that is the first expression of ignorance. Earlier expression of ignorance is that creates in me identification, anya, what I am not, namely this body, etc. Therefore, creates in me a sense of confinement, that I am confined to the body, mind, sense. That is the first expression of avidya. That makes me look upon myself as an individual, confined to the body, mind, sense complex. And therefore, anything that is outside that is thought to be anya, anatma. Anyasmin anatmani drushti. Looking upon something as anatma itself is ignorance. First product of ignorance is looking at myself as individual, as and looking about the other things anatma. Tatascha atmavidya krita भ्रांति निबंधनत्वात् पुत्रादि लाभ प्रतीते है. पुत्रादि लाभ प्रतीति. This conclusion in myself, this pratiti, thought, pratyaya, conclusion, putradi labha, that attain putra, etc., attain happiness, is avidya krita bhranti nibandhanatvat. Avidya has caused the identification of body, mind, sense complex. This causes bhranti, notion that I am so as an individual. That right away creates sense of limitedness and therefore dukkha. There was something looked upon as a means of sukha. The whole series of, Brahma goes on. So, putradi labha, attain happiness by attaining putra, etc. That pratiti is born of looking of myself dukhi. This ignorance causes me to look upon myself as confined to the body, mind, sense complex, a limited entity, therefore dukhi. There was something as putra, etc. becomes means of happiness, as superimpose the idea of happiness upon them. This is the shobhanadhyasa. And therefore when I attain that putra, I think that I am happy, I have attained happiness. All of this is born of the notion, born of ignorance. Tasyascha sapnatulvatvad. All bhranti. Anya drushti is bhranti. Sukha is anyam. So means putradi also is anyam. This is all bhranti because what is Atma? So any bhranti, the example of bhranti is swapna. Bhranti means delusion, superimposition, notion. The example of bhranti is swapna because it is accepted as bhranti by everybody. This may not be accepted as bhranti. That my son makes me happy, everybody may not think it is bhranti. But everybody accepts swapna as bhranti. So, swapna tulyatvad. The swapna, the dream is bhranti, is delusion, and therefore swapna putra also is bhranti. See, there is anya drushti in swapna. Although when we wake up, we realize that what was is nothing but is all emerged from me and all merged into me. Swapna was not separate from me. When I was dreaming, then I thought I was different and the world was different. So that duality between the subject and object that we think we experience in dream is recognized to be a bhranti or a notion or delusion when we wake up. Therefore, swapna is a good example of what bhranti is and what bhranti creates also. Here also, therefore, what is swapna, what is important? Anya drushti is a corrective swapna. Even though in reality swapna is nothing but myself, and still I look upon swapna as different from me. Pashyanad maya bahirivo bhutam yatha nidra. Just as in nidra, in sleep and dream, I look upon the dream world as different from myself as long as I am dreaming. Yes, sakshat kurute prabodha samaye swatmanam evadvyam. When he wakes up from the dream, they realize, hey, dream world was myself. Advayam. Therefore, I know that dream is a bhranti, and therefore the anya drushti is the character of dream, that is all bhranti. The anya drushti prevails in waking also, when I look upon others as anya, so that is also bhranti. So sukha means look upon as anya. When it looked upon as different from myself, it becomes a means of something to be attained. There is a means of attainment. So all of this samsara is there mainly because of bhranti. Therefore, all of this is a product of ignorance, not knowing the true nature of myself. Tathacha avidyana vrittamantarena atma surupa nitya sukhalabha abhavad. So nitya sukham which I am seeking, the eternal happiness, the limitless happiness, which is really atma sukha, happiness of myself, is already attained, thought to be unattained, thought to be different from myself. Nitya sukham also anya, thought to be different from myself. Therefore I am trying to attain that. The anya drushti is product of ignorance. So as long as Anya Drushti remains, it will always remain elusive. The sun is chasing its shadow. Chaya is the wife of sun. Sun is looking for Chaya, going round and round, doesn't find. So human being seeking this limitless habit doesn't find. Therefore, avidya nivrittimantarena, without the dispelling of ignorance of the self, this Atma Sukha cannot be attained. And therefore, the means of attaining Atma Sukha is only self-knowledge, that's all. That Atma is not Sukhi is an illusion or delusion or a Brahma created by ignorance. And therefore, dispelling of ignorance, that eliminates that notion. Sa sampadya. Therefore, avidya nivritti sampadya or atmajnanam sampadyam. Sa sampadya, feminine. What is sa? Avidya nivritti. The dispelling of ignorance is something that we have to attain. So tannasa moksha uchyate. That is how the verse continues. We'll continue discussion tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeri Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.